Hello, my name is Caroline Adkins, and the title of my elementary individual performance is Breaking Barriers on the Frontier. Today, if you looked outside the window, you would see paved roads, nice looking houses that have nicely landscaped yards with a few trees here and there. But 18th century Kentucky did not look similar at all. Trees were abundant, treacherous creeks were on the ends of every path, and sharp rocks covered the few and faded routes they had to travel upon. Those were just a few of the things that plagued pioneers on their way across Kentucky. When you hear about pioneers that blazed paths across Kentucky, most people automatically think of Daniel Boone, but he wasn't the only one. Even before Boone or Borough, there is an establishment that isn't as famous as those two things. That establishment was Fort Harrod. Fort Harrod was founded in 1774 by James Harrod. It's located in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, which is close to Lexington. There were a handful of people that found their home at Fort Harrod. Those people were barrier breakers and trailblazers. They were barrier breakers because they broke the many barriers that the frontier gave. They made their way through harsh thickets, across fast-running creeks, and past many other obstacles in their way. One of those outstanding trailblazers was Frances Jane Coombs, first to manufacture salt, first to make bread, first teacher, and first doctor to practice in Kentucky. Why, hello there. It's quite a surprise to see you here. Well, I guess I should introduce myself. I am Ann Pope, one of the children here at Fort Harrod. Mrs. Coombs is the teacher here at Blab School. Blab School is what we call it because we repeat almost everything that she says. She also teaches with these things called horn books. They have letters on one side and numbers on the other. They help us learn to read and write. She also teaches with this deerskin that hangs from the ceiling. It has the constellations on it. The most important thing that she teaches, I think, is how to get back to the fort if we get lost. She teaches us how to know east, west, south, and north from looking at the sky. Our schooling is considered so important that we even have our own schoolhouse at the fort. The schoolhouse doesn't have chinking in between the logs, which is to keep cold air out, because Mrs. Coombs believes that fresh air is better for us and it helps us learn better. I guess she would know fresh air is good for us because she also acts as the doctor here at our fort. She studied under this man named Dr. Hart, but was the first person to doctor in Kentucky. She brought this thing called calomel to Fort Harrod. He uses calomel to make medicines which protects against mumps and typhoid fever. Not only did she bring stuff to make medicines with, she makes medicines with stuff we find around here. She gets white walnut bark and boils it down into a syrup that she then makes into pills to treat the sick here at Fort Harrod. I've heard she has done many tremendous acts as a doctor. There's this one man that lived at our fort that had an ulcer on his leg. He went to Mrs. Coombs to get help. Mrs. Coombs not only helped him with the ulcer, she did something miraculous. She got rid of the ulcer. She got wax, which is generally used for candles, and put a mound around the area with a hole in the top. She then poured scorching hot bear fat into the hole at the top. Bear fat is used for a lot of things, but Mrs. Coombs used it for a different purpose. After that, the ulcer was gone. Indians often attack our fort, and sometimes our men get wounded. Mrs. Coombs always tries to get the bullets out, and usually does so successfully. Just another wonder done by Miss Coombs. She also had this grandchild who had this condition called clubfoot. I have to admit, I could not stand the sight of him. His toes touched all the way back to his shins. Surely but slowly, Mrs. Coombs tried to correct the issue. She made unique braces that gradually made the foot level. Eventually, her hard work paid off. Her grandson had a normal, level foot. Not only was Mrs. Coombs the first teacher and doctor here in Kentucky, she was also the first person to manufacture salt. Salt is very important in our lives, especially in the fall to prepare for the winter. Salt cures meat, which preserves it. We were on our way to this fort, well, where this fort would be, and we came across this area we called Drain's Lake. Miss Coombs sat by the water all day boiling the water down. She spent hours and hours and hours doing this. I honestly didn't think she was going to find whatever she was looking for. But eventually she found what she was looking for. She found salt. This proved to be a very valuable resource later on. It helped us survive. Well, I've got to go. Lab school is about to start. I don't want to keep Miss Coombs waiting. Frances Jane Coombs was a pioneer that had an impact on her community and Kentucky history. The early pioneers, including Frances Jane Coombs, had to be barrier breakers to survive. We've talked a lot about Frances Jane Coombs, but there were others like Anne Pogue's mother, Anne Kennedy Wilson Pogue Lindsay McGinty. She was the first person to bring aluminum to Kentucky, and she also helped Fort Herod's economy by running an inn. The people that lived at the early pioneers that lived at forts had to be barrier breakers to survive, breaking barriers in the wilderness, in traditions, and in the new land itself. Just remember, you can be a barrier breaker even if history doesn't remember your name.